Hello, everyone. I'm Kristen Nettapak. Welcome to Tea and Magic, our weekly show on the Magic Grove, where I bring amazing guests that I know to the show to talk about their areas of expertise, usually in relation to magic, but we like to extend it out there. I love to bring on guests that have their own businesses and their own healing practices in whatever form that takes to the show. So I've got an amazing guest who I've known for quite some time, Gaea Lady. She is an award-winning dancer, kitchen witch. She is just this like, what did you say, creatrix? Is that the word that you use for yourself? She is like one of those masters of all, like jack of all trades, but pretty much a master at everything she does. And today we're going to be talking a little bit with her about kitchen witchery, because we are in a time where we're talking about gardening and sustainability and that, but more so is the sensuality of food and how to come back to your senses in this physical body. So that was my introduction for you. What about your introduction for you?
Oh, wow. That was a really great introduction. I think you nailed all of it, except that I'm a cat as well.
Yeah.
I also, definitely feel very feline in my body. I love fire. I'm a professional burlesque dancer, and I have a foods project company. I love dabbling and doing all of these things. And so sharing all the knowledge that I've gathered is a very important part of my life. So thanks for having me here, Kristen. And I can't wait to talk and dive into my favorite topics.
So first of all, I want to start with this. What are you drinking? Because this is Tea and Magic, so we always have to talk about our tea.
Well, I'm drinking some tea that my lover Jason made. This is my favorite jasmine pearls with a little bit of lemon. And it's in a cup that my mom got me a really long time ago. It's like, it used to be a set of 4 cups and a teapot. And this is the only one that's left.
Oh, that's so sweet. My mom actually just showed me a tea set that my great grandmother had given her that she gave me yesterday. And I was like, I can't even drink out of this right now because I don't want to break it. I don't want anything to happen to it, right? It's so precious.
I know, but things are meant to be used. So
yeah, you are.
What are you drinking?
Okay, so I am drinking, I always drink chamomile just because it's really relaxing. So I just got a new batch of organic chamomile and rose hips and like rose buds and rose pieces. So I'm doing a little chamomile rose. Rose is one of my favorite flavors, scents, like everything I love. I mean, obviously look behind me. I love pink. I love rose. Oh my gosh, it's buried right now, but you had made me this gorgeous silk that I'm going to take a picture of later, because you made me this beautiful silk. Not only do you do so many wonderful things, but you also, you are a silk veil dancer. Yes, and you make these gorgeous silks, and you made me one that was this beautiful pink color.
Oh my gosh, I have to show you. I'm going to move my camera for a second, but look, this is what my cat does every single time I make a new batch.
That actually looks just like the one that you made me, so it's gorgeous.
I know. They're brighter than those. The ones that I made you were a rose petal from like a cream into a light blush. And so these go into a hot fuchsia into like a light pink. So they're different. And yours has this like gradient this way, and these are gradiated this way. So they're close.
Oh my gosh, gorgeous. Well, now that we know what you're drinking, I want to just start right off the bat and talk a little bit about magic. So a lot of what I teach here and a lot of what I share with the group is that magic is intention, your personal power plus intention. But in order to make, our intentions are always there, but a lot of times our bodies are not vibrating at that level that we need and able to have all of the power that we need to sort of get that energy out there. And so at the base of what I call magic and what I teach is all about coming back to your physical body. That is healing your body, that is taking care of your body, nurturing your body, because we are souls having a human experience in physical form in our body, and you are the queen of that. So if you had just right off the bat, sort of a mantra or like one thing that you really want to get across in all of the work that you are putting out there, that you're showing people and that you're teaching people in relation to that magic starts with our body and take care of our body, what would it be? And it doesn't have to be one thing. Feel free to go off right now on all the things.
Gosh, all of them. The first words that come to me are that you are magic and that you are the magic. Exactly what you just said. It's that we have all of this within ourselves, and the more that we can be intuitive and listen and activate and trust ourselves, the more we can step into our own empowerment and personal power and being. And so if we hold ourselves back from that by not trusting or not believing, then that really takes us away from stepping into that. So it is realizing that we are the magic and we have it all within ourselves. And yes, it takes hard work and a lot of dedication, and it's all within us already. So that pertains to sensuality and kitchen witchery and your unlocking achievements, whatever. All of it.
Yay! I love you. Like you are magic. I mean, that is just like the best. That's the best thing you could ever say to anybody. And
I know.
A lot of times we do think,
pussy magic.
yes. Wait, show us again. Show us again. We need to make sure we
Hold
get
on.
that on camera.
Pussy magic. Live cat. There we go. Can you see it? Focus. Okay. There we go.
Yes,
so therefore,
I love it. Pussy magic.
Yeah. Remember.
Yeah, so let's skip to that for a moment. Like, where did Pussy Magic come from? Because I know I've worked with you before, and it really is all about like empowerment, especially like, the divine feminine and a lot of the women that we work with. So where did Pussy Magic come from?
Pussy magic actually came from my good friend Bella Blue, and she was the one I was just staying with in New Orleans. So I do a lot of burlesque, right? And speaking of pussy magic, I believe that our power, especially as feminine beings, comes from our hips and our lower chakras. And like it's like the bottom of our spine and the bottom of our energetic connection, which directly connects into the earth and brings us up. It's this place of creation, and is almost this this cauldron of magic that we have within all of us. And I believe that the patriarchy and society out there keeps us down and tells us that we are not powerful creatrixes and beings who can manifest whatever we desire, and that our pussies are dirty and not to be seen and not to be loved, right? And so there's this whole stigma around like self-love and self-pleasure and like knowing who we are. So as we start to say the word pussy, say all of these delightful things about ourselves, like an organ that we have that literally connects us to the divine and incites us with pleasure, like the more magic we feel. So therefore, pussy magic.
I love that. I love that. And being a divine feminine goddess, I completely agree. So a lot of what we were chatting yesterday, and we were talking a lot about sensuality and our senses. And really during this time, this topic is about kitchen witchery, which really is, like how to work with your food. A lot of kitchen witchery is intentions with your food. But I really want to start with the body, because again, I know that is like a really root foundation in a lot of the work that you do on the classes that you teach. So we talked about sensuality, we talked about the senses, and we talk about how important it is during this time, especially when people are quarantined, they're feeling disconnected. Like how do you get back into your body, and why is it important to really make that reconnection? Not just with food right now, we'll talk about that in a minute, but with all of your senses, your sense of taste, your sense of smell, your sense of sight. And how does that how would that help someone during this time sort of ground them into the earth by coming back to that?
hmm So our senses are the bridge between our inner and outer landscapes. Our senses, right, are physical organs that take in data around us and put it into our neuroreceptors in our brain. And then from there, we sort through that data and, you know, put it in one place, makes us feel a certain thing. We might judge it. We might collate it for later. We might find different feels from it. And so this is important because if we activate our senses, we can live in the present moment easier. And our magic is found when we live here in the present moment rather than worrying about the future or having anxiety or judging ourselves for the past. And so our senses are this bridge between inside and outside and outside and inside. And when we can connect to that, right, just by touching something, by smelling something, we rocket ourselves right back to the present moment where that magic resides. The present moment is where we really create everything. This is where we manifest. If we're trying to manifest something in the future, we can't because we are here firmly in the present. So our senses bring us back here. And it's very important for us to do that right now because there's so much of our lives that we are living online and we are living through these portals that we're talking to each other for. Oh man, my cat's really into this podcast, into this interview too. Speaking of present moment, there we go. So yeah, the more that we can get out of the present, or I'm sorry, get out of like living in our devices or projecting into the future or thinking about what it was like in the past, the better that we can practice resilience, which is really what this era is about, this Corona era. In my world, and about like rejuvenating and rest and digest and upgrading for the next level. And so being in our senses and being in the present moment allows us to do that important work. Or you can think of it as it allows your subconscious and your body to do that important work for you rather than trying so hard to do it with your mind. So it's extra important to do it now, to be here in this space and to be present and to feel all the things as they come up. So.
Oh my gosh, I love what you just said because that is, I always talk about magic and how, again, it's personal power. That's really what it is, plus intention. And this is the vessel that energy flows through. So not only do you need to be in the present moment, but you need to keep this healthy. And a lot of times when you're out there and you have anxiety and you're worrying about the future or you're worrying about the past, you're not living in your body. When I first opened up to magic and opened up my psychic senses, one of my guides, one of my teachers said, you just have to be sure that you're not constantly leaving your body. And, not only does that come from worry, but that does come from practicing. I just taught one of my friends how to use tarot decks and he's out there. And I said, you do have to come back eventually. Like you can go do the work. And that's amazing to connect with spirit and connect with, the divine forces we're working with. But in order for, or at least I believe, in order for those intentions to root, you have to be grounded in physical reality. Correct? I wanted to know what your take on that is. How important is it, when you're manifesting, you're putting your intentions out there in whatever form that takes, and please share how you do that and what maybe some of your rituals are. But how important is it to be grounded so that those intentions have the possibility to take root and actually become reality?
I think that being grounded is the most important thing that you can possibly do, right? Think about it. If you are going to leave your body and go on a divine excursion, I love them, by the way. I love getting out of my body and going off into the astral plane, and sometimes you don't even know where you went. But the most important thing to do is to be grounded, because if you are not grounded before you go, you can get lost out there or other things can happen, or you might have a really hard time coming back into your body. you might have a really hard time like coming back and being grounded. So before I start anything, I'll talk about my personal practice with performance, because one of the ways that I really get into my divine channel state and get to get bigger and like leave body is by being in my body more. The more I can be grounded and rooted through my breath, through feeling my feet on the floor, connecting down into the earth, and feeling the quality of my skin, of my palms, of the light, of the way that I feel, of my energetic state. When I can firmly be in my body, then I'm ready to go. It's like doing an all systems check before you go off on a long road trip, or before before you launch your rocket into space. Not that I've done that, but I've seen videos. But you have to like get into it in order for that to allow for the openness. And so I do exactly that. I ground into my body. If you ever watch any of my classes or take any of them, I always start with firmly rooting your feet on the floor and feeling them, and then breathing up through your spine all the way up and then down, and then noticing where the kinks are, like what is happening in the body before you start going anywhere. And so that's a huge practice for me. Like no matter if I'm going to go perform, or I do this also as a cook and as a kitchen witch. I do this practice before I do a big event, or cook a big meal, or I even start to menu plan. It's important for me to be in my body before we go out into the like imagined creative or like giving and receiving space of performance.
Yes, thank you for making that bridge. I was like, okay, let's talk about kitchen witchery. Yeah, so I mean, we have a lot of people right now that maybe some of them love to cook. I know a lot of people at the moment are getting a lot more time to cook at home. There's time to prepare. We're not in such a rush state where we're eating fast food. Not a lot of people are going out, so they are in their homes, and they are, they have this opportunity to nurture themselves. But eating, and I know this is a thing for you, eating is not just about like cooking and eating. There's so much more intention that goes into, first of all, like what you're putting into your body, but also your relationship with food. And there's just so much magic there. I don't even know where to start. I'm going to hand it over to you. And I want you to talk a little bit about, yeah, your process of cooking, your process of, the moment you walk into the kitchen, or like you said, you're planning a meal. What are all of those phases you go through? And also eating. When I met you, you had taught us this like sensual way of just enjoying our food. So take us on a journey a little bit through the planning, through the sitting down moment where you're actually eating the food, so that people can maybe create a ritual out of this.
Mm. Oh man. Okay. So we're going to be here for the next 3 hours, right?
Yeah, the mini version, the mini book. He is creating a book later, so you'll have to buy that.
Oh gosh, it's in the works. It's in the works. Yeah. So, let's see. Let's start. I grew up cooking, or rather, I grew up not cooking, except for fast things. My mom and my dad didn't really cook that much. We had food, like dry food from boxes, and freezer meals, and frozen vegetables, and salad from a bag, mashed potatoes from a box. It was very, very basic. And I had a boyfriend in high school, 17 years old, who was Polish and Croatian. And so his grandmothers cooked huge, lavish feasts, all from scratch. And I wasn't able to talk to them because they only spoke Croatian or Polish. And all they would do is like refill my glass of wine and tell me I had to eat more. And I remember that, like that experience of like extended dining outside of my normal like familial table, where like we ate all the food and it was so mysterious to me, and like they would kind of tell me what it was but not really. So I was rocketed into my senses, like tasting and smelling and trying to understand and like using my body language to communicate. That's one of the first experiences I really remember being like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I really want to learn how to cook. And so I knew how to make pancakes and scrambled eggs and like roast meat. Um, that boyfriend and I took it upon ourselves to start on this cooking journey, and we would make a really special ritual out of it. And it was so fantastic to like have it be this special event where we got to plan something we were going to learn, what we wanted to eat. And then like look into like the recipes and the history of the recipes and the food and picking out the food. So that really opened my eyes to what food could be like. Then fast forward a couple of years, I was eating better and like learned how to cook some things. I was in college, and I had a really bad allergic reaction to some medication that I was put on because I sprained my ankle. And it's a long story, but I was like in and out of the hospital, and my body was really wrecked from all of the stuff they pumped into me. And I came out and I felt worse than when I went in, and I didn't know how to feel better. And all I knew was pharmaceuticals for health, right? And like this traditional way of like not being able to take your own health into your own hands. So I had a teacher who was very hard on us and wouldn't give me any excuses for not even coming to class, even though I was in the hospital. But she told me that I should try a detox diet. And I had no idea what that was. I didn't even know why you should detox. And so that was this first door into looking at food as medicine, which is one of the tenets of how I cook and why I cook and why I think it's so important to share cooking. Through this detox diet, I learned how to cook whole grains. I looked at the labels of my food and started to see how much sugar, preservatives, food colorings, just crap that we don't need that's added into all of our like easy convenience foods. So in that, I started to learn how to cook, and it was so hard, and I did it for a whole month, and it literally changed my life. So I like rocket fueled my food knowledge, and at the same time, I noticed how better I felt in my body, how I was able to feel grounded, how I felt I was in art school at the time, and I could just like my art practice blossomed, like my creativity was incredible and my work ethic was great, and I felt so much better. So that made me really believe in the magic and the power of food to be our medicine and to be like what nourishes us. So let's go fast forward a couple more years. I started a food co-op eventually with a group of friends here in Chicago, and we looked at the necessity of eating together as a community. So, right, it's like the joy of cooking and the concept of food as medicine, and then looking at food as this community through line and this necessity for human beings to connect around food and to be able to understand each other, to get on the same page, and to like physically nourish your bodies together in space and place and have a conversation over food is one of the most grounding things that we can do and the most supporting things that we can do as humans, I believe. And so in creating this food co-op called Edible Alchemy, I learned how to cook. I learned how to cook on large scales, and I learned how to teach other people how to cook through managing volunteers and bringing ridiculous field kitchens to Burning Man events in the middle of nowhere with no running water or fuel or electricity. It was crazy, and it was so telling. And so through all of these, right, and through doing those crazy kitchens, eventually like Burning Man kitchens and festival kitchens, I started to practice this way of cooking that I call intuitive cooking, where I listen to whatever ingredients we have, whatever equipment or methods that you have to prepare them, and what your body needs at the time, right? In tandem with seasons, with the weather, which is a lot of what Ayurveda is based on, and like seasonal slow food, and how you can be patient and find your edges within all this. So we listen deeply into ourselves to kind of let the food tell us how it wants to be prepared and how our bodies want to eat it. So I practice this thing called intuitive cooking, which is so gratifying, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But right, we have this like curiosity and this desire to eat and to connect with our food, which then fuels our magic. We have this ability to look at food as medicine, which then fuels our physical corporeal being, which then allows our spirit to shine and soar. We have this like connective web of eating as a community and eating as a way to nourish our bonds between people and relationships, which is intrinsic to sharing the knowledge around food and teaching other people how to cook. And intuitive cooking, which is looking at ourselves deep inside and bringing our inner essences to light and listening so we can recognize the magic we already have and find the ways that we want to prepare food and listen to it, do it, eat it, and then do it again. And so with this intuitive cooking, right, this like method of preparation where you deeply listen to yourself and your senses and like what needs to happen, it starts to bring us into this sensual place, this way for food and everything we're experiencing while we're cooking and preparing to like bring our senses into the food and the experience of smelling what's cooking and adding certain herbs and noticing intuitively what happens to our bodies, and feeling the dough or the vegetables beneath our fingers and like touching things to see if they're fresh or wobbly or old, and like how to best use them to serve us. So gosh, there's so much stuff.
So much. Oh, can I just back up for a minute? I mean, I'm
Yeah,
just
sure.
like, I'm just enchanted, by the way. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's so brilliant. This is all my guests. I sit there and I smile and I'm like, this is why you're on my show. But I mean, there's so many things there that we could dive into. So we have a group of folks. They are very into the earth. They are very into nature. I don't think not everyone here really, I guess, has dove into the world of magic. So some people were teaching how to use that intuition, how to tap into that. So we had a little video before about divination tools, but I love this because this is like divination and intuition in action when it comes to our health. Because a lot of times we think about, oh, I'm going to get messages for my life, but this is like a daily thing that you could do. So for those people that are not familiar with tapping into their intuition and how to work with food, you touched base on it, but could you just go into like a little bit more detail? Like, okay, I open the fridge. Now what do I do? Like how do you actually tap into that zone so that people know? Because that was just such a brilliant thing right there.
Yeah. This is probably the question I get asked so often, is like, how do you put it all together? Like, where do your recipes come from? So I don't work from recipes. I've learned a lot of recipes by like perusing cookbooks and trying things out. And right, like looking at divination tools almost as your kitchen knife and your chopping board and your cast iron skillet and your wooden spoon. Right. Okay. So step one, check in with yourself before you go even open the fridge. Check in with yourself and be like, okay, what does my body need right now? Do I need something grounding and heavy, like a hot, nourishing stew or beans or protein or grains, right? Like deeply nourishing, squash, potatoes, whatever that is? Or do you need something enlivening and brightening? So you want some fruit or raw, crunchy vegetables or something sweet or maybe a fermented goodie, right? So check in and see, do you want something hot or cold, sweet or salty or sour? Do you want something grounding or enlivening, right? And you can check in and see what you want. Oftentimes, in quarantine. I know our bodies are like, sweet, sweet things, comfort foods, because it is a little bit stressful. And so if you notice too, if you can notice that stress response being like, I'm stressed. Okay, cool. I want pizza. Then you can be like, okay, do I really want pizza? Yes. But how can I make that serve me also, and like put the things on the pizza that are going to serve you? Maybe less cheese, maybe a gluten-free crust, and maybe a lot of vegetables and greens to go with it, right? So checking in. Then the second step is like assessing what you have. So if you open the fridge, because we can't go to the store every 7 seconds, you open the fridge and you notice what you have in the fridge, right? And you just kind of take stock of what's there. And then you check back in with yourself and see what you can put together. Then I like to start pulling a bunch of options out of the cupboards in the fridge and looking at them all on the counter and seeing what can be created, right? Listening into the intuition. It's almost like, if you will, casting a spell and creating a food and manifesting something to put into your body. So you put all your tools out on the table, you put all your ingredients out, and you see what is going to go together best. And then I usually like pick a couple things out, move them a little bit closer towards the stove or my chopping board, and then put other things back in the fridge. I like to start with a lot, like chopping my vegetables first, or like heating a pan or making veggie broth. And then I kind of see where it's going to go from there. You know, I at that point, like have a destination in mind. If I'm going to make miso soup, one of my favorite things. So then I'll pull all the ingredients out. Miso, I'll usually have a veggie broth made, or I'll make a veggie broth. Dried seaweed or mushrooms or fresh greens, maybe carrots or tofu or tempeh, yada, yada, yada. And like pull all those out. Notice how I'm feeling, see what's going on. And then I start to zone out. I start to just let myself get wrapped up in this preparation, right? You ground, you make your plan, and then you get to just start like chopping and cooking and figuring things out and putting them together and heating them up. Don't be afraid to stop the process, turn all the burners off, recheck in, see what's going on, and then go back into it, right? And then, yeah, gosh,
Uh,
there's so
I,
much. There's so much
I
to it, but it's
know, but that was
also at the same
beautiful.
time so it can be so simple.
It's almost meditational.
It very much is meditation in action, in creating.
Yeah, a lot of times people can't sit still. You know, that they picture meditation as I'm going to sit and cross my legs and sit still, and they don't realize that like something like this. Again, it's like you said, meditation in action. You are getting that zone out moment, and also it's an addition of creativity. So it's meditation, it's creativity, it's nurturing your body, and at the end of it, you get to eat this beautiful meal that you made. So one of the most amazing experiences I had with you, we were both in Sophia Tom's Temple Body Arts, and you were our master goddess chef, at Witch, and you hosted a dinner party where we had to sit down, you put all of the food out in front of us, and each one of us had to like take little bits at a time and feed one another. And I just love this. But in addition to that, I know this is Easter weekend for whoever is watching this right now or watching this pretty soon. It's Easter weekend. And a lot of people are going to be sitting down, maybe not with their extended families, but they're going to be creating this food. And, you know, it's a holy weekend for some, and it's a gratitude weekend for others. But there is always like a food aspect to this holiday, right? So once you create this food, what is your process of enjoying it with intention, and like how much gratitude goes into sitting down with this thing that you create, this beautiful creation that you made, and why is it important to continue that intention not only during cooking but through enjoying your food as well, rather than just like, you know, scarfing it down while you're looking at your phone like some people do. So I guess just, you know, share a little bit about what you do and touch base on this feeding one another, because it's amazing. But like, how important is that? How important is the eating process?
Oh, it's so important. You are a great host. You told me you were, and I just want to let you know that you are an incredible host. So Thanks. So yeah, the what you're talking about, Kristen, is the goddess feast, is the sensual goddess feast that I get to host for Temple Body Arts in our day of Lalita, of like exquisite sensual play. So I craft this beautiful meal, and the intention behind it is to sensually enjoy every single bite. Because when we bring ourselves into our senses and we allow for ourselves to really take in the total nourishment of the food, right? Not just like the physical calories, vitamins, and minerals, right? The total energetic nourishment of the food, we take on so much more from it, and we are full in so many other ways besides our belly just being full. So with this, I have everyone, and I invite you to do this as well with your next meal, is to set the space and to make it a little bit special. Even if that is just wiping off the place that you usually eat, or like lighting a candle, or like putting a crystal out, just make this your altar for a moment. And start by observing the food that you've put together. If you can plate it really beautifully by, like, I don't know, putting a little color pop on there, or trying to make it look a little bit fancy. Don't worry if it does or not, but just do it so it's aesthetically pleasing. And then observe. Use your eyes to look at the food and start to imagine what it will taste like. Take a breath, ground yourself into your space, and start to use your sense of smell and start to listen with your nose. And yeah, you know, whatever. What is it called when you mix all your senses up? That's definitely me.
Oh my gosh, I know. I'm gonna have to Google that. I was like, there is a word, but it's not coming to me this
I know.
moment. I know what you mean.
But yeah, so listen with your nose and start to smell and take in everything with your olfactory glands, and start to notice what happens in your body. As we prepare our body to take in food, our body starts to create the enzymes and the digestive juices for us to fully take on all the nutrients in our food. If we just start wolfing it down without any kind of preparation, then it's harder for us to take in all the nutrients. So a lot of speaking of sacred weekends, or traditions and rituals. So my family grew up saying grace before every single meal. We would bless the food. And this was a beautiful ritual, which I don't always do, but I try to do, in order to like ground yourself, give thanks for the food, and start to get your body ready, right? So try to find some sort of ritual to get your digestive tract, try to wake up all of the little cilia and the probiotics in your gut to take this food in. You'll notice too that your mouth starts to get nice and wet with saliva. Your mouth starts to water, right? You get ready. So you look at your food, you smell your food, and then I encourage you to use your sense of touch. And if you can use your fingers, wash your hands, folks. But but use your fingers, and if you can like use your sense of touch to connect with your food, that's a beautiful way as well. Or if you have a bowl of hot soup, or if you have a plate with beautiful edges, or even your silverware, just notice what it feels like in your hand. Put your napkin in your lap, hold your glass, and notice about the texture, notice the qualities. Then take your first bite, right? Slowly figure out what you're going to eat first, and start to build that anticipation with yourself, and feed yourself this bite, fully acknowledging everything that went into the food, where the food came from, what it took to cook it, any things that you learned, what the nutritive qualities are. And then as you put it into your mouth, feel the texture, feel the quality, feel the heat, the temperature, and the taste, and just let that really resound in your mouth as long as you can. There's an Indian proverb that says that you should chew your food as many times as many teeth as you have. So if you have, how many teeth do we have? 30?
Gosh, I don't know. Somewhere
40?
along those lines. Yeah.
So you should chew your food 30 to 40 times every single bite, especially if it's something hard to chew or like crunchy, right? You should really mash it up because then you get the full sensory experience. You allow for the food, the bite that you took before, to get all the way down to your stomach. Because when we overload our stomach too fast, then it bloats out really quick. We feel over full, and then we can't actually digest. Like there's not enough space for our stomach to digest the food, and it like goes through, and then we get digestive issues. So we need to stop and chew and really sit with our senses and our delicious qualities of being in our bodies in order for our body to fully receive all of the nutrients and the goodness and the energy of the food. And this practice is even more fun when you get to feed someone else. So if you're
Yeah,
quarantined with another person,
it's my
do
favorite
it. It's so good. So if you're quarantined with another person, please practice feeding them and try to feed them every single bite off their plate rather than wolfing it down. Take the time to ask them what they want. This is also great communication skills, y'all. Yeah.
especially with partners, if you're lovers and partners. I mean, I'm sitting here listening to you like I need a cigarette. It's so sensual. It's just like, oh, I'm eating it up, and somebody's saying it's mesmerizing. But these are beautiful skills to build any relationship, friendships, partnerships.
Yeah. And your relationship with yourself, which is potentially the most important. So if you're quarantined alone, practice this. Try this with your next meal. I mean, we have all the time in the world, y'all. So take half an hour to feed yourself and imagine that someone else is feeding you and like what that is like. And then maybe feed someone else or maybe eat with someone else over a screen. Like that could be a really fun thing to do too. So yeah, this is a great process for grounding in and really nourishing ourselves with the intrinsic magic of the food.
Oh my gosh, that is
Mm-hmm.
amazing. So, yeah, so we've talked a lot about creating the food, preparing the food, how meditational it is, just really engaging your senses and eating it. So, there are some folks here that perhaps aren't very used to the kitchen. It's like, where do I start? What are some of especially right now during this pandemic, and they're going out, and obviously there's no toilet paper, but there's seems to be a good stock of veggies. Maybe the meats are
Mm-hmm.
sold out and the toilet paper sold out, but where would you suggest that they start if they were going to plan a meal and just maybe wanted some basics at the moment that could last, a week or so that they can make several meals? I mean, what are some of your staples and your go-tos that you always have that this is going to help? Like you had mentioned veggie broth. Yeah, what are some of the staples that you might recommend someone go out and buy right now so they can make a whole bunch of meals and
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing?
Yeah. So whenever I go shopping, my staples are some kind of grain like rice or quinoa, are two of my favorites, or millet, right? Some kind of dry grain, and then some kind of bean. If you want to start somewhere, start by learning to cook beans and rice. Believe me, there's so many primers out there online for you to cook these. It's not hard. Take some time, but that is a low cost, high energy way to fuel and feed yourself for a good long amount of time. So, beans and rice, there's lots of different kinds out there, so you'll never get bored. Lentils that I'm not even going to get into it. Okay, so beans and rice. um, I usually like some kind of garlic or onion, or some kind of potato, sweet potato, or like red skin potato, or heirloom potatoes. Those tend to be nice and filling and nourishing. And then lots of different kinds of vegetables. So, my advice to people who are new to cooking is to tackle one thing at a time. Don't feel like you need to try 4,000 or like even just 10 new recipes a week. Try one or two new things a week. Okay. So if you usually eat things from a box, right, just buy a couple of those as you go out so that way you're not overwhelmed. Because if you get overwhelmed, you're not going to want to do it anymore. So start slow. and look into one vegetable. Say that the grocery store doesn't have beets, which you're usually used to cooking, but it has lots of radishes and other good like spring greens and mushrooms. So if you haven't cooked mushrooms very often, maybe you buy a big pack of mushrooms and try to cook them 3 to 4 different ways. That's one of my favorite ways to get to know a new veggie or a new fruit. And so try eating it 3 or 4 different ways and see how simple, like you don't have to make souffles and butter crust pies and, like cooking show situations. Like you can literally learn how to saute them. You can learn how to dry them out. You can put them in a soup. You can marinate them. Yeah, so try a couple different ways with one preparation of vegetables. So yeah, I like to get beans and grains, a wide array of vegetables, because then you can kind of mix and match them. Some cooking vegetables, some raw vegetables. And one of my favorite things to do is to pickle things too. So I find that adds a really great flavor.
How do you pickle? Could you give us just like a quick rundown of like, here's how to pickle? I know we could do a whole video one-on-one on pickling, but you mentioned it and I was going to ask about it.
I know. Yeah, so okay, there's two kinds of pickles, right? There's vinegar pickles and there's lacto-fermented pickles. Lacto-fermented pickles are using salt and salt in the vegetables in order to pickle them and create their own brine, right? This is like a sauerkraut or a kimchi process. Or you can vinegar pickle where you make a brine out of water, salt, and vinegar, and you pour it over your veggies. You can heat it or not, depending on the recipe. If you heat it, it's a little softer. If you keep it cold, it's a little bit crisper. And then you pour it over the veggies. You add some spices in, and then you let it sit in your refrigerator for a couple days to a week, and then you have pickles. It's so easy. Or extra easy hack is to take your pickle juice from the pickles that you just finished and put more veggies in them. So try that. It's so good for you. I have a lacto fermentation and a kimchi kraut guide up on my Patreon. I made a video about that, and that's really exciting. So, oh my gosh, yeah, that could be a whole nother thing. But it's really good
Oh,
for you. Ooh, it's so fun.
and so yeah, we are almost out of time. So I wanted to connect with you on that. I'm just telling you, I'm seeing people here. I think everyone that's watching this video, that's going to watch this video, is just absolutely mesmerized by your energy, by your knowledge. But you do so many other things. And so tell us a little bit about your Patreon and what people are supporting. Where can they find you? I will post the link here as well. But where can they find you? What can they expect? Who are they supporting besides this goddess kitchen witch? Because again, you do so many other things. And where can people find you if they want to work with you?
So I am Gaea Lady, and I have been cultivating my Patreon. If you're not familiar, Patreon is a platform where you support artists, or I support artists, right? Like as a community, you support an artist and then you get to receive their work. So it's similar but different to social media, whereas then you get like sneak peeks and exclusive videos and a lot more online content. So on my Patreon, I have my cooking videos, my recipes, I have inspirational dance videos. I do a lot of artistic nudes and put those up. But the bread and butter of what I offer is online dance classes. I do burlesque and belly dance, and a Saturday dance activation, my silk veil videos, and I'm going to start doing more cooking videos. I have 3 up right now, and I'm going to start doing a couple more like food alchemy situations. And so that's probably the best way to connect with me. But you can also find me on, I love Instagram and Facebook, and I have a great website that I spend a lot of time on for my performance stuff. The food stuff is in limbo at the moment. I got divorced and my ex-husband and I had a food company together. So I'm just like reinventing that right now. But
Oh, you are going to have a cookbook. We've already established that eventually you will have a cookbook.
yeah, I will. But that's in the works. It's in the works. But yeah, but I'm open to private mentorship right now. I have a lot of time. And so if you want to learn how to cook, we can figure something out. So.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And one thing you did not mention is that you are the co-creator of, and for all of you, I posted one of her videos on the Magic Grove, so you have to watch it, but you are the co-creator of Ignite Your Inner Flame, which we could spend, we're going to have like a whole other interview about that with you and Kiki, but you've co-created this experience and this retreat across the country there several times a year, and I know that you have some coming up this year as well that we're hoping that make it, you know, through the quarantine. I think there's one in August in Chicago where you are teaching women how to dance with fire. And I, by the way, everyone, I went to that in February. That was my last big trip before this all happened. So I was trained to dance with fire by this goddess right here and your partner, Kiki. But yeah, so where can they find information about that?
And so, yeah, we have 3 retreats a year. We have Ignite Your Inner Flame in Costa Rica for women that Kristen went to, and that's in February. We have Fire Alchemy, which is looking at ritual and fire dancing and community in Chicago in August, early August, which is going to happen. And then we have Shine Your Light, which is in the Virgin Islands and St. Croix at Kiki's villa, because she has a villa in St. Croix in December, early December. So please come and connect. We do so many incredible activations and fire dancing, and really look at strengthening you through the lens of community and being mirrors for each other, and using the element of fire to quickly transform our lives. So yeah, we
Yeah.
can pop those links in there too, if you don't mind.
Oh, absolutely. I'm throwing in all the links. You all gonna get all the links. And I do hope to be there in August. I'm just like, please let this happen because I want to go to Fire Alchemy. I'm a fire sign. Is there anything before we end this? Is there any last tip? Or, you know, it could be a tip, it could just be a word of inspiration that you want people to know, especially during the time right now that we're in, that maybe some wisdom is coming through you that you want to share in a last word before we go.
Last words. I want to circle back to some of our first words, which are, you are magic and you have the key and you have all the knowledge within you. And so listen in, because you've already got it, baby.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here. For those of you that are watching this, we do this every week, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the Magic Grove Facebook page. And then I post the videos on YouTube. So you might be watching this on YouTube later. All of the Gaea Ladies information is going to be in the description, as well as the link to the Magic Grove if you want to join us. We have so much more interaction going on here on the Facebook page, or again, you can watch these videos after. And I will see you guys next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.